Good morning, good morning to you. Good morning, good morning. Won't you share with a friend or two? Good good morning to you. You. Good morning, good morning to you, and many more. Good morning, good morning, good morning, and welcome, welcome, welcome to Daring Dialogues. I am feeling just a tad bit under the weather today, but I want to thank you for joining us for this time and for this broadcast. I am going to hang on for a short form show today, but I'm definitely not feeling my best this morning. So, welcome to Daring Dialogues. I'm your host today, Shantae Charles. If you're with me for the first time, this is Wednesday. So, no matter how I feel, I know that this is a good day because number one, I exist, I am alive, and I am in it. So, I'm always going to have that level of optimism, regardless of how I feel in my body. So today we are looking at two books, and I'm only reading a short section from each one of them because I feel like both of them are important today. Um, we know that on Wednesdays we tend to focus on relationship matters, and I'm going to be reading from Drama Free, a guide to managing unhealthy family relationships, and Set Boundaries, Find Peace, a guide to reclaiming yourself. I am just, let's see. Oh, oh, this is so wonderful. Awesome. Yeah, let's do that. There we go. All right, so thankfully, I have now figured out how to put people in timeout on YouTube, especially people who come into my space who are doing the absolute unnecessary most. All right, thank you, YouTube. Thank you, thank you. So we're going to also look at Set Boundaries, Find Peace, and we're going to look at a section called How to Successfully Communicate a Boundary. Coming into people's spaces, that's not OnlyFans. This is not OnlyFans. If it were OnlyFans, then some of the comments that I see would be appropriate, but this is not OnlyFans. This is YouTube. And over here, we're reading, we're having good conversations, we're engaging our mind and thought processes. That's what we're doing over here. All right. So let's look at this first part. This is coming out of the section Thriving and Surviving. Being a victim might feel better than accepting control. And they're going to talk about here how to disrupt the pattern of being a victim. Nobody wants to be a victim in their life all the time. Now, have some of us gone through things? Have some of us been a victim? Yes, yes, we have. But we don't have to remain in that state of mind. And so let's take a look at what the writer is saying today. It's possible to be victimized without becoming a victim. People can do things to you, but your life doesn't have to become a reflection of what they did. Victims tend to believe they're powerless even in situations where they own absolute power. I once heard someone at 40 years old say, I'm never going to college because my parents never talked to me about college. She wasn't in control of her ability to take charge of her life. Even at 40 years old, she was still holding her parents responsible for what she could currently create for herself. You aren't a victim of your circumstances. You are who you choose to become in spite of or as a result of your circumstances. Trauma may be part of your story, but it doesn't reflect the entire person that you are. Even though dysfunction impacts your confidence and desire to try, you can gain confidence through striving. Some victim statements sound like these: my parents never taught me blank, therefore I can't blank. All right. Um, I'll just talk about myself. For a long time, I did not know how to cook. Um, Now, I tried, and the first couple of times I tried was disastrous. I will admit that. But I kept on trying. I didn't stop because I could fill in this sentence: my mother never taught me to cook, therefore I can't cook. That was very true in my household. Number one, I was a very clumsy child. So anytime I would go into the kitchen, something would fall, something would break, I would be in the way. And so it just became this thing of her saying, stay out of the kitchen. I don't want you in the kitchen. um, and she taught my older sister how to cook. And so when she couldn't cook, my older sister would take over cooking and would prepare our meals for the times that she couldn't. So my sister is a really great cook, and she had been since her teenage years. But I started trying to cook, or at least attempt, in college. Now, my first attempt, I almost burned down a dorm, I will admit. Everybody was outside, the alarm was going off. People were looking around like who did it and got away with it. It was not a good experience. I had friends who were very gracious to me to say, you are the one who will be bringing the ice. You're the one who's going to be bringing the paper cups. You're the one who can bring something that's pre-made, but we don't want you trying to cook and feed us anything. So most of my college friends had grown up cooking, so they knew how to cook in college. And I ate a lot of ramen noodles because I didn't know how to cook. And when I got married, I joked with my sister and my mother, and I was like, listen, you taught her how to cook, and she's not the one getting married. I'm the one that's getting married. And my mother told me this very interesting story about how she would cook and how her sister couldn't cook. And when her sister got married, my mom would cook the food for her sister, and my mom would sneak the food over to her sister's house so that her sister's husband would have food by the time he got home. Like he didn't know for a long time that my aunt couldn't cook and that it was my mother doing the cooking and dropping the food off. So I was like, this is not going to work in the present day. So when I got married, I started learning how to cook. My husband knew how to cook, thankfully. Um, I grew up in a family of chefs, five-star chefs. So I don't know. I don't know why I didn't gravitate towards those uncles or learning what they were doing. But I grew up in a family where people cooked. Like it wasn't like I had no people to lean on. But I really didn't start learning how to cook for myself until I got married. Now I am very proud to say that I cook quite often, several times a week sometimes. I enjoy cooking. For me, it's very therapeutic. Um, I don't know. When I go in the kitchen, it's like I can focus, I can concentrate, I can develop a rhythm, and I enjoy like mixing things and making sauces and making soups and trying different kinds of recipes. So I really enjoy cooking. Now, I'm not trying to go into the culinary arts, although, like I said, several of my uncles are five-star chefs. But I would not have known that there was something to enjoy about cooking if I had just stuck with, well, my mom never taught me to cook, therefore I can't cook, right? That was a skill that I took on, that I learned, and I'm proud to say now that when my husband does take food to work, people are always talking about how good it is, how good it smells. He has to like fight people off from not taking his lunch. And so that's something that I can now smile about and pride myself on. But I wouldn't have gotten to that point if I had just stopped with, well, my mom didn't teach me how to cook, so I'm not going to cook. So I really do agree with her statement that sometimes, you know, we can take charge of our life. We don't have to stay in the same story that got us to wherever we were, or feeling a certain way about ourselves or our lack of being able to do something. Once we are out of that place and we have the power to move our lives forward, I think that we should. Okay, here's another statement. It isn't my fault that I never learned how to, and again, I could put cook in there. Well, it isn't my fault that I never learned how to cook. I remember during a period of our life, I had not learned how yet to make turkey. And during a period of our life when we were unhoused, um, you know, we were unhoused for I think like 9 months. And during that time, Thanksgiving came around, and where we were, they had a kitchen, but you had to go in there and you had to cook and prepare your food. And I remember, going to the line and standing in the line, and they gave us, they didn't give us Thanksgiving meals. They gave us all the ingredients to make a Thanksgiving meal. So they gave us, the canned goods, they gave us yams, and they gave us this huge frozen turkey. And I was like, I don't know how to bake a turkey. And guess what I did? I didn't make an excuse. I talked to the women who were also in the center with me, and I was like, look, I have this frozen turkey. I don't know how to bake a turkey. I've never baked one in my life. And some of the women there were like, well, we can show you how to do it. So they actually got together and showed me how to make a turkey. Now, my turkey was slightly burnt, but that was okay because, again, I was proud of myself that I had done it. It was, another thing that I was able to accomplish and say that I did it, for myself. I had help, obviously, but I did not let me not knowing how to do it stop me from, number one, asking for help, and then number two, following through and carrying it out. Now, that turkey was good. I gave some to the people that wanted some, that had helped me. I was able to eat off of that turkey for another week or so. I had some turkey sandwiches. I wound up making some turkey soup. Um, and it was a good learning experience for me. So I didn't stay in it. Well, it's not my fault. No, I had to move forward. Here's another one. My parents made me this way, so I can't do anything about it. I'm not responsible for how I turned out. Well, if you're an adult, regardless of what you've been through in your life, you are now responsible for how you're going to keep moving forward. You might not have been responsible for the abuse that happened in your household. You might not have been responsible for your parent taking off. You might not have been responsible for the lack of financial funds that your family had growing up. But if you're an adult, you're now responsible for your life and where it goes from here. How to disrupt the pattern of being a victim. Here are some tips that the good doctor is giving us today. Don't make excuses for things that you can control. Whatever you can control, don't make excuses for it. Decide to move forward despite what happened. Let go of grudges. Grudges don't do anything for us but hold us back and hold us down. There are a lot of people that I could hold a grudge for, but I don't do that. I choose not to hold on to grudges because they just hold me down. Acknowledge that you aren't perfect. I will be the first person to tell you that I was a horrible cook. I almost set my grandmother's stove on fire. I almost set a dorm on fire. So if anybody can encourage you that you can grow and that you can learn how to cook and that you can become good at it, it would be me. Okay? Explore what you've learned. What have you learned about yourself? What have you learned that has caused you to grow? What have you learned about your circumstances? Um, I was having a conversation last night with my husband. I have, um, and I feel like I'm starting to recognize it more, but I know that I have some trauma from childhood, from growing up in the community that I grew up in. I grew up in South Florida during the drug wars, 1980s, um, and a lot of what I experienced in the neighborhood outside of school was drug busts, drive-by shootings, people killed in the street and literally laying in the street where you could literally just walk by and see dead people because our neighborhood was so bad that the coroner would come to our neighborhood last to pick up bodies. That's how bad it was. Like we were the last stop. And so because we were the last stop, if somebody got killed earlier in the day, there would be no police coming in our community. There would be no white sheet over the body or any of that stuff. Their body would be there, just laid out until the coroner came to pick it up. Um, I remember for me growing up, gunshots, helicopters flying overhead trying to airlift people to possibly save their life, um, ambulances all the time. Like that was the soundtrack of my community life. So I don't watch a lot of gang banging movies. I don't watch a lot of like CSI shows. I don't watch a lot of shows where there is just shooting, 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 gratuitous murder, none of that stuff. I don't watch it because it was a part of the soundtrack of my childhood. It was reality for me. It was not a film. It was not a television show. So where some people find that kind of stuff entertaining, I find it traumatic. Okay? So my husband last night grew up pretty middle class. He did spend his first early years in East Orange, New Jersey, during like what people would call the New Jack City time of East Orange, New Jersey. But his dad was able to move him out of that very fairly early. Me, no. I grew up in Miami, drug dealing, gang wars, drug wars, my entire childhood. The fact that I made it out, I literally got a key for the city from Miami saying, congratulations, you survived this community, you survived this neighborhood. So, my ideas around gun violence and violence in general is way different than his. So, he was watching this show last night, Griselda, some of you all probably know it, that was dealing with the 70s and 80s drug time and the Colombians in Miami. And it was just bringing back all of these bad, bad memories for me. And I told him, I said, I have to go into another room because I can't watch this and I can't hear it because it's going to take me back to that place. And he understood. And again, when she talks about exploring what you've learned, what I've learned about myself is I can't deal with that level of violence visually and audibly anymore. I don't want to, and if I don't have to, I'm not going to. Um, and I think we need to know what our limitations and our boundaries are and be able to communicate that to other people. So I was able to communicate that to him and say, listen, this doesn't have the same effect on you as it has on me because I lived through this kind of stuff. I lived through the ducking, the running, the, you can't go to certain parts of your community because there was turf wars going on. Um, all of that stuff, street codes, you don't go after somebody's mother, you don't go after somebody's children. If you do, your war will never be over because somebody will always be coming back to get somebody in your family because you got somebody in their family. So, all of that kind of stuff. Explore what you've learned about your trauma. Okay. Practice assertiveness. Stop comparing yourself with others. Stop comparing yourself with others. Know what your limitations are, know what your boundaries are. Identify ways that you can better care for yourself. Sometimes, like me, sometimes it's just removing yourself from whatever it is. Understand your feelings and learn to express them. Minimize or eliminate self pity. Identify what you can control and own your power. And good morning to those of you coming in. An excellent way to move beyond the identity of victim and take responsibility for your own life is to consider what you've learned from your experiences. For instance, as a result of the fact that my parents were workaholics, I developed close relationships with elders outside my family who are still surrogate parents. I learned how to get to the point quickly because my parents were impatient when I provided many details. For Whitney, from the beginning of this chapter, taking responsibility might sound like this for her. My parents didn't teach me what I needed to know about healthy relationships. I will learn more by reading, engaging with peers who maintain healthy relationships, and going to therapy. Teaching yourself what you were never taught is one of the most powerful ways to become a cycle breaker. I'm going to say that again. Teaching yourself what you were never taught is one of the most powerful ways to become a cycle breaker. I was never taught to cook, so I learned how to teach myself how to cook. Now, did I have some mistakes in the process? Yes, I did. But have I learned and am I getting better and better? Yes, I am. This next section is very short. She's talking about, excuse me, how to successfully communicate a boundary. If you've had an issue with communicating a boundary, I'm going to do just her first step 1 and step 2. Be assertive and follow these so-called easy, well, maybe not so easy, but doable steps. My favorite Julia Roberts movie is Pretty Woman, she writes. She plays Vivian, a sex worker who falls for one of her clients, Edward, a businessman. He's charming, she's skeptical. Outside, people get into both of their heads to try to stop the budding romance. But in the end, love prevails and they live happily ever after. I hope. Vivian isn't intimidated by the fact that Edward has more money than she does. She maintains the standard she set for herself. One of my favorite lines is when Vivian says, I say who, I say when, I say how much. She sets boundaries, and when people don't adhere to them, she honors them by leaving the situation. So, step 1, be clear. Do your best to be as straightforward with your boundary as possible. Mind your tone. Don't yell, but don't whisper. People will miss the boundary if you use complicated words or jargon. Take a deep, deep breath and focus on being precise. Um, I had an incident yesterday online on my Facebook page. If you aren't following my Facebook page and you're interested in all things Black people, Black history, Black life, Black love, Black polity, you can follow me at Black Table Talk. All right. I had an incident on that page yesterday where for 24 hours and even right up into this moment, Facebook is censoring the kind of content that I can put on the page, and they're also censoring how I can post the content. They're also censoring certain words. So when I write certain words to describe the content that I'm posting, I will get a notice from Facebook saying this content goes against community standards. It's going to affect your ability to put more content up. It's going to affect your ability to comment on other posts, which is what it's doing right now. So I've had to pull content down. I've had to rewrite a description, and I've had to post the video in the comment section. So I'll have to say, you know, the one I just put up today, Dr. calls on clergy for action, video in comments. And then I plug the video into the comment section. Well, yesterday, a young man came into my comment section and told me that I needed to rewrite what I had written because it was not descriptive enough, and I needed to not downplay what the video was about. I said, okay, this is clearly someone who is maybe not a follower of my page. They just saw the post and they wanted to comment. So I said, okay, step one, I'm going to give you a courtesy explanation of what I'm doing. That's what I did. I went into the comment section and I said, hey, you might be new here. You might be new to this page. So I'm going to give you a courtesy explanation for what I just did. My page is being heavily censored right now, so I cannot write the description that I would want to write. Otherwise, I'm going to get dinged. I'm going to get told to remove this post, and if that happens enough, they could suspend my page or close my page. And then there will be no page. And that page has 127,000 followers. And this page has been going for about 6 years. So that was step one for me. I was very clear. I'm not changing anything, but here's why I'm doing what I'm doing. Now, did I owe that person that explanation? I didn't. They weren't a top fan. They weren't even following the page. They were just somebody that came into the comments. Do you know what that person did? That person doubled down and said, well, maybe you need to talk to other Black pages because clearly you're doing something wrong, because all the other pages that I go on, they don't have a problem with posting about Black issues and da da da. Block. I don't have time for that. I've already was clear with you, gave you an explanation, stated why I'm doing what I'm doing. I know what I'm doing because you don't see the back end of these programs and what they're saying to content creators. So I blocked them. And sometimes in life, after you state your boundary to people and they just choose to go beyond that, you might have to do that too. In real life, you might have to just lose the number, delete them out of your phone, cut off contact, say to them, I see you can't follow, I see you can't honor this boundary, so us two have to part. Step two, directly state your need or request or say no. Don't just mention what you don't like. Ask for what you need or want. Identify your expectations or decline the offer. I did that. I told this person, listen, you clearly are new here. You're new here. I'm sharing with you and explaining with you why I'm doing what I'm doing. I'm not changing my post. You're free to go and look at another page if my description upset you. But I'm not changing. And they doubled down. And so I just helped them out of my space because there are literally thousands of other pages. He said, "Hey, I follow other black pages." And I'm like, "Great. Go keep following them." Sometimes you have to do that. You don't have to do it all the time, but sometimes you have to do that. Because when you directly state your need or request or say no, there's going to be people who double down and insist that what they want to think about you or what they have for you or what they want to say to you is what you should listen to, irregardless of what you said about boundaries. Yeah. Here are a few examples of steps 1 and 2 blended together. A friend asks you to go to a party, but you don't want to go. Thanks for the invite, but I will sit this one out. You're tired of hearing your friend complain about work. Listen, I get that your job is frustrating. I want you to consider talking to someone in HR or meeting with someone through your employee assistance program to talk about your frustrations. Your mother gossips to you about your brother's new girlfriend. I don't feel comfortable talking about her in this way. I want you to be pleasant towards her because your son likes her. Your partner frequently mentions your weight gain. I don't like it when you talk about my weight. Please stop. Each one of these has a clear statement and talking about what you don't like and identifying your expectation. Okay? So that's step 1 and step 2. Step 3, dealing with the discomfort that happens as a result of setting boundaries is the hardest part. Discomfort is the number one reason we want to bypass setting boundaries. It's common afterward to feel guilty, afraid, sad, remorseful, or awkward. Now, next time, we're going to talk about guilt and how do you deal with feeling guilty or fearful or sad or remorseful after you communicate your boundaries. Because sometimes people renege and they go back on their boundaries because of those feelings. Not that they didn't have the right to set a boundary, but they let guilt take them back and undo the boundary that they set. So we'll talk about that on next time. Listen, I want to thank you for your time and attention. Those of you watching by YouTube, we're going to continue the conversation over on IG. So if you want to join us there, the IG is at Daring Dialogues. If you want to finish listening to our conversation. Thank you again for your time and attention. Remember, light is the most daring opposition to darkness. So continue to go out and be light. Take care, and I'll see you over on Daring Dialogues IG if you want to listen to the talk back. All right.